I grew up at a time where the US was looked as a country that was very constant. It was a beacon of hope. It was a beacon of peace. It was a country that demanded a lot from the people who went there. But the immigrants and even the people who lived there could plan 10, 20, 30 years ahead, knowing that despite who was the president, some things would remain constant because they valued individual rights and they valued a lot of continuity more than anything else. Now, today we woke up to a lot of drama coming from the US. We saw that there's a feud right now, a Twitter war between President Trump and Elon Musk. And the question remains, how do they come from being best friends about 24, 48 hours earlier to being enemies online? Is it a testimonial of how volatile the US politics has become and the scene in the US has become? And what does that mean for African countries? This is the Serengeti Synergy. And as usual, I try to just find the stories that matter and try to break it down in a way that makes sense to all of us and try and see what it means for Africa as a continent. So it seems like this feud started with a law about tariffs, where President Trump says that Elon's objection does not make sense because Elon has always known about this. And Elon is saying that this is news to me. And personally, I don't think it is the right thing to do. Uh, if I look back at the last 150 days or so, the US has been very unpredictable. We saw that they woke up one day, President Trump, and decided to just end majority of the funding that we used to go to the US aid that usually came to the global south and Africa to be specific. And thinking about it, they would have taken a better route. I understand that a lot of money was being spent in it, but they did not give us a period to adjust. If it were me, and I know that's a rabbit hole I just started, but if it were me, I would have basically told the organization that, listen, we've been pumping too much money into this. We need an exit plan, 6 months in the list to enable us to not put as much funding in that. I understand why they had to make the decision. The US was in a place whereby financially they were not in a good place. And Trump made a lot of promises to a lot of citizens, especially when it comes to economic empowerment of the individual living there. And I understand that. But still, the sleeping with a job and waking up jobless just because one person put a signature and 100,000 people or more are now jobless. And we can't even put into numbers yet the amount of people that have been affected by that move, from all the people that were relying on the HIV drugs, fighting malaria, fighting hunger, fighting, building boreholes, all the projects that this money was going into is quite astronomical. And with time, we'll be able to just get the exact impact that has come out of it. But that is what we first saw. Secondly, we saw tariffs that are very targeted to, if you're not a friend of the US, you're getting anything above 10%. And if you're a friend of the US, you're not spared. You're still going to get about 10%. And this just seems like it is a constant appeal of how we need to think of ourselves as Africans. Now, 48 hours ago, we saw that travel bans have been created and some African countries have been affected. So the idea that they're saying is that a lot of people are taking advantage of the visas that they're given and they go to the US and they overstay and they're blaming us. What comes to mind is maybe it has something to do with your country's policies and why you cannot track people and keep account of the people that are coming into the country to ensure they live within the time, because they're mentioning about something between 40 to 50% of some citizens from specific countries overstaying in the US. And I'm thinking that's more of your problem than us. But imagine you were planning to apply for a visa from some of these countries, maybe like Sudan, which has been mentioned, I think, and Somalia as well. And all of a sudden you sleep and wake up and you cannot because you're banned from going there. So you had family there, for example, you had friends there, you had a job maybe, and you just came back to visit. It really is not fair. And even thinking about it in another way is that it seems like we sleep as a continent, and we wake up and we don't know whether we are friend or foe. We sleep as countries in Africa and the global south, and we wake up and we don't know whether we are friend or foe. And this is a constant reminder that we should constantly be looking for different ways in which we can ensure that the only people we rely on is ourselves. The only people we rely on is African countries. And the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and I know I'm a big champion of it, is such a treaty that can ensure that even though we have all so many borders between us, that it is seamless to trade between them. And I would want to champion for each and everyone who's an African abroad or within the continent. Look around. Look at ways in which instead of getting cars from Japan, from Europe, you can maybe buy cars that have been assembled and actually manufactured from South Africa, from Kenya. If you're looking to buy oil, let's buy oil from Algeria instead of Algeria signing contracts that the oil has to go to China, that the oil has to go elsewhere, before it is even resold. Or we look at the Middle East, which is also a very unpredictable area. If you want to buy tea, come to Kenya, come to Malawi, come to Tanzania, come to Uganda. If you want to buy coffee, go to Uganda, go to Kenya. If you want to buy textiles, buy from Nigeria. If you want to buy oil, buy from Nigeria. The bottom line is we have all that we need. And I have not even spoken about Congo in the very least. But we have all that we need to be self-sustaining as a continent. We just need to come together and push for shared policies and shared goals. And every day that you wake up and you see this volatility of the West, and you're an African and you're wondering, how does this affect me? It does. In every way, in every shape, it does. So let's put our heads together. Let's not give up on Africa becoming one continent. And as usual, I will do my best to try and update on what's going on while giving a personal opinion on everything. But it is time for us to rise up. It is time for us to rise up.